Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. The top headlines tonight. In tragic news, a bank manager from Rajasthan, Vijay Kumar Beniwal, is shot dead in Kashmir. It's the second targeted killing in 3 days. Panic amongst Kashmir Pandit government employees. They pack up to leave the valley. The police tries to stop them. Meanwhile, in Delhi, the Home Minister meets the National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval. The LG is flying in tomorrow. 75-year-old Sonia Gandhi is COVID positive. The Congress says she had mild fever and symptoms yesterday, has isolated herself now. But the Congress says Sonia Gandhi will appear before the Enforcement Directorate on the 8th of June. Prime Minister Modi tweets, "I wish Sonia Gandhi a speedy recovery." Meanwhile, COVID cases are up in Maharashtra, leading an India rise in cases. Last resort politics. Congress MLAs whisked away. From Haryana, MLAs are heading to Udaipur, and from Rajasthan, Congress MLAs are moving from Jaipur to Udaipur. Once a Patidar agitator who had Chief Minister Anandiben Patel dismissed, he's now the Prime Minister's humble soldier. Hardik Patel is in the BJP, says more leaders from the Congress will join. Indian officials meet for the first time with the Taliban government in Afghanistan. An Indian Joint Secretary meets the Taliban Foreign Minister in Kabul. It's the first official meeting after the US's Afghanistan exit. Vistara is fined 10 lakh rupees after an improperly trained pilot landed a plane with passengers in Indore. The pilot had no simulator training as is needed by regulations. The $15 million verdict, which has broken the internet. Johnny Depp thanked the jury for giving him back his life. Meanwhile, online abuse and outrage targeted at Amber Heard. She will now appeal the verdict. The United Kingdom celebrates the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, 70 years on the British throne. The Queen and her family on the royal balcony wave to huge crowds and a desi flavour to royal celebrations as well. Our lead story tonight is tragic. Once again, a person has been targeted for his religion. A bank manager from Rajasthan, Vijay Kumar Beniwal, was shot dead in Kashmir today in the bank. Now, this is the second targeted killing in Kashmir in just 3 days. A government teacher, Rajni Bala, was killed just a few days ago, which has led to panic in Kashmir amongst Kashmiri Pandit government employees who are now saying they want to pack up and leave the valley. The police tried to stop them, but many have now left. Meanwhile, the Jammu and Kashmir Lieutenant Governor will be in Delhi tomorrow for a meeting with the Home Minister. The Home Minister also met with National Security Advisor Ajit Doval to discuss why this recent spate of targeted killings against Kashmiri Pandits and also Kashmir government officials and policemen.
Walking straight into a bank and shooting the manager. The terrorist target was clearly marked. Manager of Lakh Dehati Bank in Kulgam, Vijay Kumar from Rajasthan. He is the second Hindu government employee killed in the last 3 days and third in the last 3 weeks.
पीओ के एग्जाम होते हैं वो तैयारी कर रहा था आगे ब्रांच मैनेजर बन के फिर कोई और स्टेट में या कहीं भी आने की हमारी कोशिश तो ये है कि राजस्थान में कहीं आ जाए और ईश्वर की जो है इच्छा वही होगा.
The fallout was quick. Kashmiri Pandits, who have been protesting for the past 3 weeks after the killing of Rahul Bhatt inside a magistrate's office, called off the protests and started leaving for Jammu. Many were stopped by the police at Anantnag. Amit Kaul, who was leading protests in Srinagar for 3 weeks, shared this picture from the Srinagar-Jammu National Highway. He told NDTV that he was trying to reach Jammu.
हम लोग श्रीनगर से निकल चुके हैं, पलायन कर चुके हैं. हमारे बहुत सारे भाई लोग हैं. हम नेशनल हाईवे में अभी रामबन पहुंचे हैं और बहुत जल्दी हम लोग जम्मू पहुंच जाएंगे.
Over 4,000 Pandit migrant employees who had returned as part of the special employment package since 2010 now say enough is enough. It's time to move out of the valley.
Enough is enough. The government is completely failed in saving minority here.
On Tuesday, Pandit employees had given a 24-hour ultimatum to the government demanding their relocation and transfer to Jammu, or they would leave. The police barricaded Pandit camps and did not allow them to come out.
They should be allowed to go till the time government, creates a conducive atmosphere, takes care of the security situation on ground.
In Delhi, Home Minister Amit Shah called a high-level meeting with National Security Advisor and other senior security officials after the targeted attacks. J&K Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha has been summoned to Delhi to discuss the worsening security situation in the valley.
Clearly the targets are marked. Vijay Kumar was killed inside the bank because of who he was. The question is why the situation has reached a tipping point. Kashmiri Pandits who had returned to the valley as part of Prime Minister's special employment package since 2010 are leaving. Many have already left the valley. Others are waiting in transit camps, asking government to provide them security so that they can reach Jammu safely. In Srinagar, Nazir Masoodi for NDTV.
A major humanitarian and security challenge for the government there. Meanwhile, COVID cases are rising. In fact, cases are up to date 35% from yesterday. One of the people who now tested positive is 75-year-old Sonia Gandhi, the Congress president, who is COVID positive. The Congress said she has mild fever and symptoms. She isolated herself and will appear before the Enforcement Directorate on June 8th as scheduled.
Congress President Sonia Gandhi has tested positive for COVID and isolated herself. The party has clarified that as of now, she would appear before the Enforcement Directorate on June 8th for questioning in the National Herald case. Senior Congress leader Randeep Singh Surjewala said Mrs. Gandhi developed mild fever and other COVID symptoms last evening. She has been meeting leaders and activists over the last week, some of whom have been found COVID positive. Sonia Gandhi is under medical care, and it is learned that several top party leaders, including K.C. Venugopal, General Secretary in charge of organization, are infected. Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted wishing the Congress President Sonia Gandhi a speedy recovery.
And India recorded 3,712 COVID cases in the last 24 hours. That's 35% higher than the day before. The number of COVID-related deaths in the last 24 hours is 5, which is it's up slightly. It's down by 1. India's active COVID case load at 19,509, and the vaccine doses have been administered so far as 193.70 crore, active cases at 0.05%. So that's a good number. But of course, the worry is the rise. So let's just look at the top 5 states that are contributing to the rise in COVID cases. So Maharashtra is the state with the highest cases at 1,081, and the task force is meeting. There's some thoughts and recommendation on masks again. Kerala also high at 1,197. Delhi at 368. So cases are up, but as we said, there's so far at least they're not very serious cases. Karnataka also up with 178 and Tamil Nadu 139. So cases starting to go up again. The main focus, however, remains hospitalizations and deaths. Well, the other big headline with the Rajya Sabha elections going to be closely contested in at least 3 states. It's last resort politics again for the Congress. So in Rajasthan, where the Congress is ruling, its MLAs have been taken from Jaipur to an Udaipur resort. Meanwhile, from Haryana, Congress MLAs are now being herded to Raipur in Chhattisgarh, again where there's a Congress government.
Resort politics in Rajasthan and Haryana ahead of crucial Rajya Sabha elections, where the Congress now has to fix its maths and keep its flock together. The Congress's Haryana MLAs being flown to Raipur, Chhattisgarh.
के जो तमाम विधायक और सांसद हैं उनकी एक कार्यशाला रहेगी.
In Haryana, the Congress candidate Ajay Makan faces a challenge from businessman Kartikeya Sharma, who made a last-minute entry as an independent. Ajay Makan needs 31 votes to win, but one MLA is missing, Kuldeep Bishnoi, who wasn't part of this party that left for Raipur. And it could be a very close call for Ajay Makan.
उनसे पार्टी की बात चल रही है.
In Rajasthan too, the Congress moving its MLAs and independents to Udaipur, the same resort that hosted the party's Chintan Baithak last month. The Congress candidates from Rajasthan are Randeep Singh Surjewala, Mukul Vasnik and Pramod Tiwari. But wildcard entry Subhash Chandra could upset the arithmetic. The Congress has 108 MLAs and with the support of the others was at a comfortable 126. But now the numbers are not adding up.
The number of votes required for us to send 3 candidates of our Congress party to Rajya Sabha are very clear and apparent. So we have 126 MLAs who supported the Congress government for the last 3.5 years. So there's no reason why we don't have required numbers. In fact, we have more than what's required.
But the Congress, which needs extra 15 votes to make its third candidate Pramod Tiwari win, now cannot be sure that 2 MLAs from the BTP, 2 from the CPM and 13 independents and those 6 BSP MLAs that merged with the Congress will support them. Even as the Chief Minister alleges that the CBI and the ED are being used to give notices to some of these MLAs.
जहाँ चुनाव होंगे राज्यों में वहाँ पर हमेशा इनकम टैक्स छापे और ईडी तो एक मामूली बात वाजिद अली को और ओम पर हौसला दी गए जैसे उनको मालूम पड़ा कि ये साथ नहीं देंगे तो पता नहीं कि जमाने के केस खोल दिए इन्होंने.
But the BJP hit back, saying it was the Congress that is misusing its power.
मैं हैरान हूँ देखकर राज्यसभा के चुनाव जो चालू हो गए हैं, सत्ता का जो दुरुपयोग हो रहा है और जो हर एक एमएलए के पीछे पुलिस की गाड़ी लगा दी गई है और एमएलएस का पीछा किया जा रहा है, ये पूरी तरह से सत्ता का दुरुपयोग ही है.
Congress MLAs in Raipur and Udaipur will be taught how to vote in a Rajya Sabha election. Because if the color of the ink is not correct or there is a dot or a line that's not meant to be there, the entire vote can be scrapped. In fact, MLAs have to show their votes to their party observers before it's cast. But despite such strict vigilance, this game could still go either way. With Uma Shankar Singh and Sunil Prabhu in Delhi, in Jaipur, Harsha Kumari Singh, NDTV.
Meanwhile, moving to Gujarat, where elections are due in a few months, and Hardik Patel has now made the journey from Patidar agitator to the Congress and now to the BJP, where he said he'll be Prime Minister Modi's humble soldier.
मेरी भी ये जिम्मेवारी बनती है कि प्रदेश के हित के खातिर इस बड़े से राष्ट्र सेवा के यज्ञ में मैं भी एक नरेंद्र भाई का छोटा सा सिपाही बन के काम करूं. ये सब लोग जानते हैं कि जहां मैं था वहां किसी भी प्रकार का जनहित या जनता की भावनाओं के साथ जुड़े हुए एक भी मुद्दे पर काम नहीं किया जाता था. सिस्टम से या शिस्त के बाहर जाकर कोई भी काम करना भी नहीं चाहता.
A 180-degree move by Hardik Patel as he joined Bharatiya Janata Party at its Gujarat state office, months before the upcoming assembly elections in the state. After years of criticizing the party and its leadership, Patel, who led Patidar agitation in 2015, had resigned as the working president of Congress party barely 2 weeks before joining the Saffron party. The 28-year-old was welcomed with a saffron scarf and cap by BJP Gujarat chief C.R. Patil. The discontent among the ranks of BJP became evident as no leader apart from Patil joined the induction ceremony of Hardik Patel. Hardik Patel, a once fierce critic of the BJP, as recently as December had tweeted about fighting against the dirty politics of RSS and BJP. However, after induction in BJP, when he was questioned of his allegations, Hardik Patel ducked and dodged most of the questions.
अरे पर जवाब तो आप सुनना ही नहीं चाहते. आप सवाल करके जवाब तो सुनिए. आपके पहले आपके नॉलेज के लिए जब आप सवाल करते हो आपके पास एनालिसिस होना चाहिए. निर्णय भाई
हार्दिक, आपने एक बार स्टेटमेंट दिया था कि भाजपा ने आपको 12 करोड़ का ऑफर दिया है, उसके बाद भी आप नहीं गए. मेरा ये सवाल है कि किस बार आप भाजपा में आए हैं, भाजपा ने क्या ऑफर दिया है?
मुझे राष्ट्र सेवा में एक सिपाही बनने का ऑफर दिया और मैंने वो ऑफर स्वीकार कर लिया.
और अब हार्दिक ने एक समय प्रधानमंत्री को फेंकू कहा था, अमित शाह को जनरल डायल कहा था. आज किस मंच से इन शब्दों का वापस ले रहे हैं?
जो आंदोलन हमारा था उस टाइम हमने जितनी आक्रामकता से लड़े थे और उसी के बाद जब 370 की कलम हटाई गई तो हमने ही कहा था कि मक्कम गृह मंत्री अमित भाई का आभार है कि भारत एक होना चाहिए. आंदोलन की परिभाषा अलग थी.
Meanwhile, the Congress party hit back at its former Gujarat working president, calling him an opportunist.
Hardik Patel once tweeted that if a traitor joins the Bharatiya Janata Party in the morning, he or she becomes a patriot by the evening. There are 2 sedition cases going on against Hardik Patel, and today he joined the Bharatiya Janata Party officially as well. Now the question that remains to be seen is that whether the same logic will apply to this young partidar leader as well. In Gandhinagar with camera person Sushil Rathi, I'm Akshay Dongre for NDTV.
Well, going from Gujarat to what is the big diplomatic story, Indian officials meeting for the first time with the Taliban government officially. Nidhi has more details. Nidhi, so those visuals there released by the Indian government of an Indian joint secretary meeting with the Taliban foreign minister.
Well, this is the first time we've seen Indian diplomats travelling to Kabul to meet with the Taliban leadership ever since the fall of Kabul to the Taliban in August last year. In fact, India shut down its mission there and its consulates there as well because of the deteriorating security situation. And this is significant because India does not recognize the Taliban government. It has been urging other countries also to go slow on this recognition, but it has consistently been working to send humanitarian aid to Afghanistan all these months. And so what the government of India was emphasizing even about today's mission was that it was for humanitarian talks to review whatever aid India has sent to see where it has reached. Joint Secretary for Pakistan, Afghanistan and Iran, JP Singh, he travelled to Kabul for this meeting. There were pictures released of him at the Indira Gandhi Health Center that India has set up there, at another school that India has set up there. So the focus of this mission entirely humanitarian, the government emphasizing and also stressing when reporters asked whether this would mean that the embassy would reopen anytime soon, that no, not too much should be read into this visit beyond the humanitarian aspect of it. Let's listen in fact to what the MEA spokesperson said earlier today.
The team is headed by our Joint Secretary from our PI division, as it's called Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran division, Shri JP Singh, and it's a multi-member team. I'm not in a position to share the composition of the delegation. I think somebody asked about composition of the team. Suffice that it is of relevant officials who are required to, for this purpose of humanitarian assistance delivery operations, they're going to oversee that. I think you're reading far too much into this visit. This visit is about our humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan.
And it's important India establishes its presence in Afghanistan, but of course at a time when the Taliban government has extremely repressive measures in place right now against women. Meanwhile, the other story today is of course the funeral, the last rites of well-loved and popular singer KK, last rites performed by his son. And the post-mortem report, which is also out, made it clear that singer KK died because of a massive cardiac arrest and that he had been complaining of chest pain even before he had left for Kolkata.
53-year-old Krishna Kumar Kunnat's or KK's last rites performed by his inconsolable young son Nakul, also a guitarist and singer. His young daughter Tamara, also a singer and composer, shared the details of his funeral on Instagram for fans with a note saying, "Love you forever, Dad." Details of a preliminary report of his post-mortem say an underlying heart condition could have caused his sudden death. The report also mentioned myocardial infarction, which is a condition where the heart muscle begins to die because it isn't getting enough blood flow. According to sources, the report also mentions a major blockage in his main left coronary artery and other arteries. Sources in the Kolkata police, which registered an unnatural death case after the singer died after collapsing in his hotel following a concert, say that his wife had informed them that the singer had pain in his arms and shoulders before coming to Kolkata. He also had complained of gastric problems and had taken antacids, which doctors say is one of the symptoms of heart disease and can be easily confused. The information comes amidst complaints and social media posts blaming a malfunctioning air conditioning system and an overcrowded venue for the singer's death.
के बाद उनको जब होटल लेके गए तो होटल में जैसे दरवाजा खोला अंदर जाए वो गिर गए सीधा। अच्छा। गिरने के बाद नहीं उठ पाया, बस ये हुआ।
मुंह के बल गिर पे? हाँ। आप लोग थे वहाँ?
मैं था ना साथ में।
हाँ। शो के समय क्या हुआ उनको?
शो के टाइम पे बरोबर था, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं था। जैसे गाड़ी में बैठा तब थोड़ा सा उनको हाँ वो गर्म ठंडा लग रहा था, बट जैसे होटल में गए हम लोग, मैं दरवाजा खोला वो जैसे जाने गए ऐसे गिरे वो।
Singer KK's death has once again brought back the focus on heart disease in India, especially amongst those who appear to be fit. The incident also raises concern over lack of awareness about heart disease and the growing numbers of young people dying of heart attacks. With camera person GD Shankar, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
Gone too soon, singer KK. In other news, Vistara has been fined 10 lakh rupees because of how an Indore flight landed. India's aviation regulator, the Director General of Civil Aviation, has fined Air Vistara 10 lakhs for violating safety regulations because the airline let an improperly trained pilot land the flight with passengers on board at Madhya Pradesh's Indore airport. The pilot, who was the first officer on the flight, landed the aircraft, though he had not got the requisite training in a simulator, said the DGCA. The other big international headline is a $15 million verdict against Amber Heard. The reactions to that have broken the internet. Johnny Depp thanked the jury for giving back my life. Meanwhile, the online abuse and outrage targeted at Amber Heard has been extremely misogynistic. She now says she will appeal the verdict.
The jury gave me my life back, said a jubilant Johnny Depp as a US jury vindicated him, announcing the verdict in his favor, bringing the couple's high-profile trial to a close. The former celebrity couple's responses to the verdict broke the internet this morning, just like the acrimonious high-voltage trial that preceded the verdict. The climax of the televised trial played out massively on social media, as the court strongly sided with the Pirates of the Caribbean star, awarding him a compensation of $15 million. The jury found that Amber Heard had defamed Depp in 3 separate statements and that Depp had defamed her only in 1. The court's verdict came after a series of bitterly contested claims and counterclaims of domestic violence and sexual abuse.
I don't want this to hurt John.
Today's verdict confirms what we have said from the beginning, that the claims against Johnny Depp are defamatory and unsupported by any evidence. We are grateful, so grateful to the jury for their careful deliberation, to the judge and the court staff who have devoted an enormous amount of time and resources towards this case.
I hope that the position returns to innocent until proven guilty, said Depp in his Instagram post after winning the defamation case. He said that the goal was to reveal the truth and that a new chapter has finally begun. An impassive Amber Heard responded by saying, "I'm disappointed with what this verdict means for other women. It is a setback." With platforms streaming it live, the trial became a source of voyeuristic mass entertainment. Domestic abuse charges turning into a 24/7 spectacle with social media users analyzing each expression and argument. The amount of hate directed at Heard has serious implications. She was shamed outside court and viciously trolled on social media.
The Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial is the latest in a series of high-profile cases that dominate social media. The trial had unleashed an onslaught of online hate by nameless, faceless entities. Amber Heard was pronounced guilty on social media well before the jury did. Now this has of course triggered the long-drawn debate on media trials, shaming and the online call-out culture. Vedant Agarwal for NDTV.
Absolutely horrifying comments online out there. But let's move now live to London, where the United Kingdom is celebrating the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. That's 70 years that Queen Elizabeth has been on the throne. Well, why do we in India care? Well, of course, the fact that she was on the throne at a time for 70 years has seen India-UK relations through much of colonial and post-colonial as well. And of course, there's an Indian touch to celebrations too, Radhika. So huge excitement there in London.
Very much so, very much so. And during her 70 years of reign, she of course has met with so many leaders, hosted so many Indian leaders as late as 2018 when Prime Minister Mr. Modi was here. She also gifted him a lace shawl which was made by Mahatma Gandhi, which she handed over to Prime Minister Modi. Now I'm going to of course go across to these wonderful ladies who've been here. There's Adele. Where's Adele? Adele's here. Hello, hi. So from a fly past with 70 aircrafts in the air, there's party on land. There was a train line that was launched with over 1 million journeys that have already been made on the Elizabeth line. Have you travelled on it?
Yeah, I have travel. Yeah, I come from Reading to London. So Elizabeth line is fantastic. It saves me around 15 minutes of my journey.
Okay, so it's not just purple, it's also very useful. Okay, tell me, you look like a little queen yourself. What brings you here? Why are you so connected to this entire process?
So I feel very connected to the Queen, particularly because she's done 70 years of selfless service, and we Indians are very much a part of this society today. So, and she's given us a day off to celebrate, so we had to be here. Long live the Queen and God save the Queen.
4 days of holidays. And that's something that London is welcoming. And today, about 1 hour ago, we saw a huge turnout here, given the fly past that there was. And that was for the first time since the pandemic. Adele, what brings you here? Do you dance to Bollywood songs yourself?
I've done stick dancing before at a wedding, and I love Bollywood. Absolutely love it. I love the music. Everyone is so happy and colourful. I love colour.
Sonia, there's so much of Indian presence during these 4 days of celebrations, only signifying the kind of powerful Commonwealth partner India is. Apart from individual performances, just on Sunday, there's going to be this 6-meter long cake, which will be Bollywood themed, and then people are going to be dancing to Bollywood songs, and that's going to be the grand finale as part of the 4-day celebration. So a big historic event being celebrated here, but also signifying the relevance of the monarch even now in 2022.
Right, a Bollywood wedding cake to symbolize the finale. So that's really, I think, a full circle for Karan Johar movies now topping a Royal Platinum Jubilee celebration. Radhika, thanks so much. It looks like amazing fun. Thanks for joining us.